This clip goes over upper body joint stacking, specifically to stacking the wrist joint. So right now I'm already set up in a good stacked position. So if you look at the handle here, the handle is in line and dissecting my forearm. So my forearm's perpendicular to the handle. This is what you want. So whether you're pushing or pulling, you want your forearm perpendicular to the handle of whichever weight exercise you're using. And you want the weight distributed on your wrist like this. We'll show some examples of how not to do it. So there's an example of it being pushed out. So should make sense why if the handle is held like this, that would really cram on your wrists. So this is not an uncommon error. This seems like it'd be common sense to a lot of people. It might not be so much common if you're just new to exercise. So you don't want to be pushing things like this because it can really hammer your wrist. It's not going to feel good. You could also push it the other way where it's not going to feel great the other way either. So here, you might think that I have a stacked wrist, but not quite. Hopefully you can see it. The handle is just a little bit inside. So it's not dissecting my wrist. It's pretty close. So if you look at my hands, my wrist, forearm, they're nice and flat. So this might be desired if you're in some sort of striking sport, right? So with the case of moving weights around, not necessarily. If you're pushing or benching a lot of weight and you're holding a grip like this, you're more likely to kind of lose your wrist grip here and then drop the weight in, which you don't want. So this might seem like it is stacked over the wrist, but it is not. What we would like to see is bring that wrist back just a tiny bit so that the handle is stacked over my forearm. So there, what I did, I brought it back just a little bit. You can see there's a little bit of angle in the wrist, that's all right. But now, the handle's in line with my forearm. This clip will go over upper body joint stacking specific to the elbows and shoulders. So in the last clip, I explained how you want your wrists to be stacked and how your forearms should be perpendicular to the handles of whichever weight you're trying to push or pull. So right here I'm already showing a good example of that. Notice where my forearms are in relation to my fists. You kind of can't see my forearms because they're behind my fists. If I were to stand directly in front of you while you were, for example, bench pressing, I shouldn't be able to see your forearms except for whatever musculature is showing from overlap behind it, right? So basically my fist is eclipsing, in a way, the visibility of where my forearms are. That's what you want. We'll talk more about how to do this. So I'm going to drop my elbows here in a second. So I'm pushing out. That's good. That's a good rep. If your elbows are like that, you don't want to push like that. If you're trying to push weight off your chest and your elbows are way underneath, that's not ideal. Here's a side view of that. There, that's perpendicular. Pushing forward. That should make sense. So imagine that I'm on my back right now. Imagine I'm laying on my back on a bench, right? Rewind. I've got this weight on my chest. I've got to get it up. So it should make sense that I got to push that way. If my elbows are not behind pushing up, then it just won't go up as efficiently as it could. Same thing if I were to pull. If I'm pulling backwards, so if I'm doing a barbell row, pull backwards the same way. Pushing and pulling forward. So the back view here. The grip I'm using right now, this is I guess you could call it either a standard grip. The technical term would be pronated grip, where my palms are facing down. That's the grip I have on the dumbbells right now. So look at where my elbows are. They're slightly down. This makes a slight arrow shape in my body. When I have a standard grip like this, my arrow shape will be a little bit wider. When I go to a neutral grip, so where the handles are up and down or vertical, my arrow will be closer. So here's the neutral grip. Same thing, my forearms should be perpendicular to those handles. You can already see that my elbows are closer to my side. Another important thing to consider when you're pushing and pulling, going back to discussing the arrow shape in your body, so when your elbows are down at an angle here, what this also does is it helps keep the weights in line with your chest. So if I'm trying to do rows with whatever handles for whichever weight exercise I'm using, I should be pulling to my chest, right? So if I'm pulling the weight to my chest. If I'm pushing with the weights in line with my chest. This is for horizontal movements. When you're pushing overhead, things change. For horizontal movements, you want to always keep it in line with your chest. Notice how I'm pushing straight above my chest, not over my shoulders or face. So I just switched to pronated grip, same thing. The weights are in line with my chest and sternum. Pushing straight up above my chest. Okay, so that is upper body stacking. A lot of it might seem like common sense. If you're a beginner, you might not know this. What you would commonly see is elbows winging out to the side, which we previously discussed in the ebook, which you don't want. Your body should make an arrow shape between your torso and arms, not a T shape. All right, thanks for watching.